Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Forever Grind podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Matthew Turkio, and I am joined by...
Angela Brown.
And we know it's been a little while since the last episode, but we've been exceedingly busy. And some
Sorry.
of those things hopefully we'll be able to talk with you here today about. So to start, let's go straight into the news. And I guess I'll lead with that. There's a couple of things that have happened since our last talk. We talked briefly about the Microsoft acquisition in the past. It looks like that's finally gone through. So we can look forward to seeing a whole bunch of Activision Blizzard games on the Xbox or on Game Pass in the future. I'm excited about that because while I like many of their games, I don't often go out and spend my hard-earned money on them. It's interesting that, it's something that should have finished about a year ago, but here we are only seeing it happen now thanks to regulators around the world. So it's been approved by everyone now except for the FTC in America. And, they've lost their court cases multiple times. I think they're going to try one more time, but I think by the time that happens, both companies will be merged and, they'll just get a kick in the pants and waste taxpayer money. Do you have any affinity for any Activision Blizzard games, Angela?
Really?
No, you weren't a big fan of like Crash Bandicoot or anything back in the past. Don't they own Spyro? I like Diablo. Diablo's fine. I'm not into, I've played a whole bunch of the Call of Duty games, but I fell off those. Like, I'd just play them for the single player, which I guess is not the point of them, you know? I guess the point
No.
is the multiplayer, and I really wasn't into that. But, understanding that they are hugely popular, so I could understand why. They also own King. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're the company that puts out stuff like Candy Crush Saga and things like
Oh.
that. So that makes billions of dollars a year, apparently. Obviously, we're not in touch with the mobile video game world, but
Mm.
I personally would happily accept more games being given to me on Game Pass, assuming I don't have to pay more for it. In the news also, there was a little bit of noise around, was it not Epic, it was
Are you thinking of Unity?
Unity, thank you. I don't know why I can never think of Unity, but um, if you're aware or not, there's two main engines that people use to create games nowadays if they're not making their own, and those are Unity and Unreal. And generally the way it works, or has worked in the past, is that you use these tools to make your game and then you pay a percentage of royalty back to the owners of those tools, and all is well in the world. Unfortunately, Unity decided to change their royalty fee. A couple of weeks ago, they announced that they were going to change it, and it was very convoluted. They wanted to charge a fee for every install. And it was kind of a retroactive thing. So like, you could have your game out there you've built on Unity already. You've got a few million people using it and whatnot. And what they wanted to do was charge you, say, 20 cents per install. And that means that if you go and install a game today and then you finish it and you uninstall it and then you come back in 6 months' time and you install it again, they want you to pay another 20 cents. So you could see how that could be abused. People could write scripts just to install and uninstall games, let their computer sit there and just churn away. People don't like the rules changing after they've agreed to them generally. I know every time I get a bill in the mail saying, we've renegotiated how much you're going to pay for this, I'm like, oh, well, that makes me sad. So I could only imagine, if you're a small indie developer, you probably weren't accounting for this kind of royalty. You were thinking, oh, I'm just going to pay X percent of whatever I earn, which is a good way to do it, right? Because if you earn nothing, you pay nothing. So no real risk there. But now your game may not sell much, but you could potentially be paying a lot for installs regardless.
Well, yeah, I saw this impacted through. I do some work with high schools and with universities, and I was taking a tour of a fantastic, tech school facility, which is there's lots of them here in Victoria. We have a lot of tech schools. So tech schools are a place for secondary students to come and do STEM learning, and it just means that the all of this expensive equipment and stuff like that is not located at the school, but it's located at this central hub, and then all the schools go to this hub. And so they're really cool places to go to because they've got incredible tech and hardware and some amazing things you can learn, 3D printing and game design and robotics and all kinds of stuff. And so when we were taking a tour of one of them, I asked about Unity because not only this school does game programming and but they also do use engines for show reels and things like that and animations and all kinds of other stuff. And they said, no, Unreal all the way. And it's because Unity really locks them out because that model is really better for game designers. But when used in an educational space, it's just not feasible. And it's almost like they've set up the pricing and the structure and the subscription models to keep out educational use, which I think is really silly. And if these are your game devs of the future, it's dumb.
Yeah, I see what they were thinking when they implemented it or attempted to implement it. They were looking at games that have millions of players. For example, what's it called? Genshin Impact. It's probably the biggest game that's done on Unity. And they're thinking, well, there's millions of potential players out there, but we're not making any revenue out of them. It's a free-to-play game, I mean, maybe they get a percentage of the microtransactions or something. I don't know, but they were probably thinking, well, if we could just charge 20 cents for every person who's installed Genshin Impact, that would be a reasonable way for us to recoup our costs, because they're seeing these massive companies out there, doing these things. But it's really, they can probably afford to pay 20 cents per install. But it's the smaller people, like you're saying there, people working in universities and tech schools and stuff like that, who are building not necessarily just games, but applications and stuff that are getting absolutely hammered by this new licensing model. So I think they've revised it a few times, but they were just very vague about it. People were asking them, like, how are you going to protect us against people installing and uninstalling? They're like, oh, well, you can let us know that it's happening, and then we'll investigate. And if we find that it's real, then, and it's like, oh, so I've got to trust you. I trusted you before, and now you've just, changed everything. And I know that things like Unreal and Unity are not just used for game development. They're used for universities. They're used for movies. I think, if you watch, like, some of these real big budget TV shows nowadays that they make on, like, Disney Plus and, HBO and stuff like that, they're actually using Unreal to generate backgrounds and things like that. So, of course you want to make money off your product. I think the days of Epic just having unlimited money and the days of Unity just having unlimited money are probably not there. Like, everyone was spending big when interest rates were low because you could borrow as much money as you wanted and you didn't really have to pay much back. I think now that the economy is different, tech sectors are down. They can't continue to boom like they were during COVID. You see now these companies letting go hundreds and hundreds of people. Everyone's just probably trying to tighten their belt a bit. But the last thing you want to do is cause developers to run away from your engine and go to the competitor. And it kind of looks like that based on what I've seen people posting online, people saying, oh, we're going to have to redo our game engine now and port everything across. It's not what you want to do.
Yeah, and if you're not going to apply some compliance over your new pricing model, people then smell a rat. They're like, well, all you want to do is make immediate money. So what about all of the people who are doing the right thing and, paying you to,
Yeah.
to install it every time? What's the consequences for those who do the wrong thing? And so it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So you're just going to go to the competitor where life is a lot easier.
It's kind of like piracy, right? Like, how do you combat piracy? Well, instead of like trying to litigate people for millions of dollars, try and find a way that you can make your product
Yeah, more enticing.
consumable for them. Pirates are just customers that you haven't been able to convince to spend money, right? So, yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but that's definitely something that's happened in the news around gaming. It probably affects people who are planning right now to build games less than people who
Mm,
already have done it. But you know, nobody wants a delayed game because someone has to change engines.
no, no.
Hmm.
Anyway, let's get to the really fun news of this
What's
week.
that?
Star Citizen.
Oh,
The
that's
Star Citizen Con.
they're very
Please,
bold calling it
please.
a con, aren't they? They're just like Star Citizen
Yeah, it
Con.
certainly is a con. At least it's correct.
So, do you want to describe what Star Citizen is?
Star Citizen is a money sink where they've managed to fish and convince a whole series of people for the last 10, 11 years to sink money into a game that is not complete. And I'm sure the people who created this idea, like I'm sure Chris Roberts is sitting somewhere on a Bermuda beach sipping pina coladas, but basically Star Citizen was conceptualized as a single player game as well as a multiplayer, or like, massive multiplayer online experience. But the single player game they started developing, 10 years ago, and all the voice acting was done 10 years ago, and all of the story writing was done 10 years ago. And they've basically spent 11 years refining it.
Well,
And how much money have they made to date that
uh,
they've raised from the public?
more
612 million, was it?
something like that. That's just from the public. They've also had private investment and stuff like that. But I think
Yeah.
you're doing an injustice to this, and I don't want to be
Really?
litigated. So let's be a little bit more generous before we call things a scam outright.
I
Um,
didn't say a scam. I said the name of the convention was Star Citizen Con.
yeah, convention.
And
I,
you're the one who mentioned that con is probably a title that they shouldn't have
I
used.
wouldn't call it that, I backed Star Citizen when they announced it. So for people who don't
Yes, you
know,
did.
there was a company a long time ago called Origin. Origin, not the EA installer Origin that you may be familiar with today, but Origin was a company founded by Richard Garriott who created Ultima. That's probably his claim to fame. That we could do a whole episode on Richard Garriott's interesting life.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not
But
going to talk about Lord British here today.
no, he did sneak Scotty from Star Trek's Ashes, James Doohan's Ashes, onto a space station though. So he did some good in the world. Anyways, this company Origin, it put out a whole bunch of space simulator games called Wing Commander, and that starred Mark Hamill in the later, FMV games. They were similar somewhat to X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, those kind of games. They were great, and when they announced that this guy was Chris Roberts, who made those, was coming out of retirement to make a new one, I was exceedingly excited, and I plopped down my $110 or whatever it was 11 years ago to get this single-player space sim, which I still do not have. What is there to say? They finally put out a trailer, and at the end of the trailer, by the way, the trailer looks very impressive. At the end of the trailer, they said it is what was it, feature complete, which I believe is the way you would call something an alpha. I think you do feature complete, and then they do like another step over the top of it for quality, and then you get your beta or your release. So I don't know when it's coming. They didn't give a date for it, but it is probably the longest running Kickstarter I've ever seen. Um, it's not like you can't log in and play the online game, but they spend all their time just chasing these weird technological dreams, like, fancy cloth behavior in the wind and, all these physics and, the bartender needs to be able to, serve 15 different drinks and we've updated the bartender's AI and you're like, well, where's the game that I wanted? But,
Yeah, and is the game any fun?
I don't know.
That's the thing. I mean, there's plenty of people like me, surely, that prize the game experience and how fun it is over technological achievement. I get the Digital Foundry exists and that website exists for people who love the tech side of things, but they've been 11 years down a rabbit hole for a game that hasn't been released. It's not a great look.
There's something there. There's a lot there if that's what you're into to go and look at. It's not like they have produced nothing.
Well, it's not even inclusive because you need the world's greatest, technological hardware to even run the damn thing.
That's true.
And it basically excludes 99% of the population to play it already.
But it doesn't exclude the people spending the money. So, for those of you not aware, the way it kind of works is they release ships, different ship configurations and ship types and whatnot. And when they release these ships, you can spend real world money to purchase them. And that is also your sort of ticket into the game. And sometimes the ships are exceedingly expensive. But, if you've got the money, I'm not here to tell you what to do with your money. You can do whatever you want. But I believe that's how they raise most of their money.
Yeah, and really, it's an intentional exercise, and some may see the similarities between that and a pyramid scheme.
No, I would never say. I would never say that.
But it's pretty cynical. And what they should do is that if they're going to use that to raise capital, they should produce the single player game that everyone kickstarted way back when.
I still believe it will happen.
And then continue to put out $50,000 ships for rich people to buy. Do that on the side, that's great. And then you can continue that world building exercise over there. Please put out the game.
I believe. In my heart, I believe it will come out one day.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, it's the first news on the single player game since they kickstarted it. It's the first real news. So there you go. So if it took us 11 years to get to this point, I'm guessing we're going to see the game in another 12. That's my bet. And by that time, we'll all be dead.
By that time, I'll have a computer that can run it. Actually, my computer can run it right now.
No, you won't. It's going to need like the power of 1,000 suns to run it. So yeah, but that's all right. We'll see.
So what have we been up to though since the last episode?
Well, PAX happened.
Oh yes,
in Melbourne. Mm-hmm.
It was the 10th year, 11th year. What was it?
10-year anniversary this year.
Wow.
So it was kind of fun seeing where it's been, and we've been to all of them, except for the ones they did over COVID. They did the 2020 online one, and I think 2021 was online as well, and then they returned last year. And we didn't do the online ones because while we like panels are kind of they're fun when they're interactive, and it's a bit weird when you do them online, I think. But we've been to all the in-person ones since the beginning.
There were some good panels this year. I thought, what was the one we went to? Was it Acquire? Was that the Japanese company Acquire?
Oh, I think
they
that's
had
what
the
they're
CEO.
called.
I feel like it was Acquire, but I could be completely wrong.
So I
feel like I have to look it up.
Released Tenchu, which was a beat 'em up that was released on the PlayStation way back when, and it was really interesting hearing some of the insight to how Tenchu was created and how this gentleman whose name escapes me right for the moment, but he described in detail about his long harboured dream to produce more Tenchu games, and how he's actually his software studio, which I do believe is Acquire,
Yes, it
have
is.
been producing small kickstarted games to try and get up enough capital to realize his long-held dream of another Tenchu game. But it was fun. It was really fun. That's the kind of stuff that we like, and but I do want to make this comment though. Things have changed in the 10 years that PAX has started, and maybe back when it started, those types of panels would have incited a lot more interest. However, a lot's changed, and PAX's focus is very firmly as there's two areas that are probably overshot just the traditional kind of console gaming and PC gaming stuff. And that's content creation. So Twitch and,
Influences and
yeah, influencers and, esports and stuff. And the kind of the revival of tabletop gaming. So
yeah.
those two things definitely had the biggest, were center stage at this PAX. And so the little panels that we go to, that panel we went to for Acquire probably would have been full 10 years ago, and now it was only like a quarter full, but that's fine. Just means it's quieter. So yeah, it's a pretty different scene at PAX these days, but that's all right. Us old timers will still keep going.
Yeah, so going back to that panel, the gentleman's name was Takuma Endo. Yeah, and he started Acquire in 1998, and he was just telling really interesting stories about how he wanted to create a game, and he was trying to ship it around, and nobody would buy it until he went to like Sony Music or something. Not even the game arm, and the music arm was like used to trying to find new talent and nurture that new talent and whatnot. So he's been running that company now for 28 years or something. And he was just talking about how, like, obviously Tenchu was a big hit for them back in the day, but the complexity around Tenchu is that, like, it's owned by 3 companies. So he may own the name. This may not be correct, right? But he may no. So I think it was From Software owned the name for Tenchu. He owns the name Stealth Assassins, which was like the Tenchu Stealth Assassins was the subtitle, and then Acclaim or Activision may own the rights in the US to release the games or something like that. So they can't make more because nobody wants to get in a room and work out, the differences. But he was just talking about how difficult it is to, run a studio with like 120 people, which is a small studio, I think, when it comes to games nowadays, and still keep it running 20 something years later. And they were just talking about how now they've been making smaller games to put them out faster, rather than working on bigger games, that there's a lot more risk, just so that they can keep the studio going and keep all the people employed. And I think that's great that they're concerned about keeping people employed, because, most companies only care about shareholder value. So, yeah. But like you said, the panels, there's a lot less about games and with game makers and stuff like that, and there's a lot more panels about becoming an influencer, building a Twitch audience, and I don't know. It's just, half the thing now is the tabletop gaming, and I think it's wonderful that tabletop gaming has had such a resurgence, and people seem to love it. I don't have the time in my life for tabletop gaming. I appreciate it and know that there's some cool games out there, but I've just got too many games to play to settle down for hours and hours every day to play a tabletop game. But
Yeah, it's a real time and place thing. I think we'd play more of them if our son was into them. Well, he does like them, but a bit of a sore loser. And if we invest 6 hours into a game that he loses, which he may just because he's 11 years old, then he'll do the old board game equivalent of,
no mercy. No mercy.
Yeah, look, I played Risk with him about 6 weeks ago for the first time, and it ended in a tantrum for the ages. So I don't know if I want to invest all that time in a board game just to go through that turmoil again. So I think that's part of it, but also it's just carving up that time in on your weekend when you've got competing priorities. I think if you're a young person and you've got fuck all to do, you can dedicate your weekends to it. You can hang out with your friends and, you know, um, but yeah, I got to do housework, man. I don't know, it sucks, but I don't have the time. Gaming for me exclusively happens after 9 o'clock at night, and you can't really board game then, physically, for
Um,
us anyway.
Also, just, nobody's listening to this, but I want to put it out to anyone who organises PAX. Could we have the concerts on Saturday night and not Friday night, please?
Please, Saturday.
Because Saturday night is a lot easier for old people like me and my wife to be child free.
Oh, it is. Although having said that, we're clearly not the key demographic anymore because we see an event every year now that PAX has been running for the last three PAXs. And can I urge you, if you come to PAX, you need to see the dark room, which is usually on the Saturday night. And obviously the word's getting around because in the main theatre this year, that seats 1,200 people and it was full. Whereas previously it's been about half full. And it is a hilarious, it's like a live text adventure.
It is
and
wonderful.
it is. It's filthy as. So if you're delicate, if you've got delicate sensibilities, don't go. It's pretty filthy.
Don't bring your 12-year-old to it.
Do not. This year, someone bought their 12-year-old, and we were looking at each other going, we couldn't bring our son in here.
No.
Jesus. It's absolutely filthy, which, we love. And you just spend, an hour and a half in hysterics. It's the best. It's worth the admittance to PAX just for this because I'd happily pay $50 to $100 just to go to this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's really, really good. And obviously the big crowd means more fun. But at the beginning, every time, he puts it out there to see the ages of who he's dealing with, which obviously helps him in putting the show together because he's very quick-witted. And so he asks at the beginning, all right, who was born in the 1960s? And this time there was like two people who went, yeah! And then they said, and who were born in the 70s? It was probably about 10 of us or less that just went, yeah! Oh. So, and then when he said who were born in the 2000s, well, that was a bit disturbing.
Everyone.
Which was everyone, basically. So, yeah, we're not the key demographic. I understand. But PAX, some of us old timers like gaming too. Although I will say that this time they did put the what do they call it? The classic console. What do they call it? Which we just call the retro area. The classic gaming area was actually in the main hall. And so it was easier to get to and it was a slightly bigger space than they've had because in the last couple of years, they put it right down the back in the corner. Which kind of told you how much they liked it. But this time it was in the main hall. And I think it was just because they wanted to kill some space in the main hall. And I also think it's because the tabletop area has exploded so much. They just wanted all the tabletop area. It now takes up about probably a good 2/3 of the entire back end space of PAX, which is just extraordinary. I've never seen anything like it. So areas that used to be quite large, like the LAN area and the bring your own PC, have significantly reduced in size, and now it's just all just tables and people just board gaming and card gaming, which is awesome. That's great, and it should flex to what people want, for sure. So we weren't completely out because we're in the main hall hanging out with the oldies. And it's also good because it means a couple of people brought in younger kids, and the younger kids were kind of enjoying some of the old games, and that was fun. But it was also right next to the esports arena, so so it was pretty noisy, and that's okay. I think Nintendo ran a Splatoon and a Mario Kart Championship this year, and I think that was a really good idea. I think it was really good production. It was really fun. So that was good because the esports arenas tend to be pretty PC heavy and really, it attracts all the League of Legends type people. So it was fun to see something that had a bit broader appeal and appeal for kids as well. The other thing I'd mention, apart from the fact that we're old people going there, is that Sunday was traditionally a day where we've always taken our son. So well, Matt, you go on the Friday and hang out. We go together on the Saturday, and then the three of us go on the Sunday because Sunday's always been smaller crowds and it's just a bit easier to get around with a kid. Not this year. This year was full on. So the crowds, the people are coming back. And Sunday was really busy this time. So obviously, the future for PAX is probably pretty good in Melbourne. I think they signed a new contract last year or something, didn't they? And there's a new Petty Arcade don't run it anymore. It's
They
licensed.
outsourced it, yeah.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about board games there, I just want to give a shout out to one of our friends, Jack Felipe, who put out a board game at PAX. He launched it there. It's called Sudden Conflict, I believe.
Check it out.
I will post a link or something in the video or in the description. You should check it out. He has poured his life into it for the past couple of years since COVID started. And by all the things I've heard, it's quite good. So shout out to Jack, and I wish him nothing but the best with his board game. And the last thing I'll say about PAX is it is great to see the homegrown indie area growing. So the area that they put aside for games that are made in Australia or New Zealand has just gotten bigger and bigger, and the quality of them seems to be getting better and better. So I'm glad they haven't skimped on that part of the expo.
Yeah, agreed. And all that's doing is that gets to grow into the areas where Sony and Microsoft used to be. But it's not a terrible thing. It's not a terrible thing
I
at all.
don't need to go to a convention to see a game that's coming out in a week or that I could play at home, you know? I'd rather
Yeah,
see something interesting.
which is what they normally do. And that's what Nintendo did this year. It was all about Super Mario Wonder and also the new Pokemon DLC. So they heavily focused on that. And Wonder was released 1 week later. So I don't know about you, but I'm not queuing to play a game that's coming out in a week.
Fair enough.
But, Nintendo, it was good to see them back this year because, they gave out some freebies. It was a nice, big, really good looking stall. They had some exclusive merchandise this year. That's what they should be doing. And if they're clever, they can make their money back
Easy.
by
Yeah.
having merchandise. So it was pretty clever. They had a really well designed stall. It was fun. We did just look at it from the outside though, because it was pretty busy. And like I said, Wonder came out a week later. So
Yeah.
yeah, but it was a good time. Good time had by all at PAX. We'll be back again.
Good to see the mates and good to take the family too.
Yes, yes, that's right. We saw a lot of friends this year. It was great.
So
Yes.
that brings us into our next segment, right? What are we playing? You can go first. You've been hard at work.
Oh, not really. I since the last podcast, I picked up Advance Wars 1 and 2, the remake for Switch, and I finished both. They're not enormous games. I think I spent maybe 25 hours in the first one, but significantly more for the second. I think the second was maybe 50 to 60 hours. Really fun, just good fun. Enough challenge that it's not pick up and play, but basic enough that it's really good for, it's a bit of my first turn-based strategy type game. Got nice visuals, it runs really nicely. It's got catchy music that our son has been singing to me all the time because it really, he found it very catchy. Yeah, really fun. I had a good time with it. And, if they decided to keep producing Advance Wars, I would happily pick them up. I only ever played the original. I never played the second one on the, for the Advance, yeah. I only played the first, and I remember really enjoying it. So I had a really fun time playing it the second time. But yeah, since then I finished those two, and then I picked up 13 Sentinels that I've been meaning to play for some time, and it's been sitting there on my pile. And yeah, it's a pretty wild game. It's different. There's not much in it. I don't know. I reckon 25 hours might just about do it. But it's a very strange game that it's about 60 to 70% visual novel and about 30 or so percent real-time strategy. It's a strange mix, and I can't unpack it fully, but it's by Vanillaware, so it looks very nice. It looks very Vanillaware, that's for sure. It feels very Vanillaware. The story's great. It's, a bunch of teenagers in Tokyo, and it's sci-fi. It's about, a mech invasion of Tokyo in the future. But there's lots of time travel and lots of intrigue and romance and all that kind of stuff that you'd expect from something produced in Japan based on school students. It's a really good story. You have to navigate through the visual novel by choosing paths, and you have the opportunity to travel back. And what you need to do is find a word that they've said, a keyword, and then use that word to unlock branching paths. And then once you've unlocked all the branching paths, you can, complete a part of the story. And then it unlocks other parts of the story, and you need to see it through the eyes of all 13 main characters. And there's a lot to unlock. And sometimes you've got to go back and do the same level, the same story over and over to try and trigger the keyword coming out. So it's interesting. The real-time strategy part, you have to shoot down the mechs. You're in a mech, you got to shoot down the other mechs. You're in a mech called a Sentinel. You got to shoot down the other mechs. Visually, I quite like the look. It's a bit of kind of early 2000s cyberpunky kind of, look about it. The real-time strategy is okay. It's, you've just basically got to shoot down all the mechs, and you just have different series of weapons. So it's not very complex. It's not a lot to it. It's interesting. They lose all their clothes when they get in the Sentinel. They've not adequately explained why that happens. So that's fun. So it shows up little animations of them controlling their Sentinel, and they've got no clothes on. Okay. But yeah, it's an interesting game. Will finish it in the next week, and then I still haven't played Zelda, but I'm probably going to move on to Octopath Traveler 2, or maybe I won't, because Persona 5 Tactica is coming out in about 2 weeks, and I really do want to get cracking on that. And I also have on pre-order the remake of the second Star Ocean game, which is coming out on Switch. So I'm not sure which is going to get the go, but we'll see. But anyway, you're playing a lot more.
Yeah, but I just want to say, when I walked past and saw you playing 13 Sentinels, I think the first thing I said is, this looks like a Vanillaware game. And it turns out that they did work on it. So the visual novel parts of it, at least, definitely have a particular look to the characters. If you're familiar with, like, Dragon's Crown or Odin's Sphere or something like that Vanillaware have worked on, it's definitely got that sort of like hand-drawn kind of art style to it. It's kind of hard to explain. It's not like Dragon's Crown, where everyone is voluptuously endowed. It's more...
There is one.
Oh, there is one? Oh, okay.
There's one character who is a teacher in the game, as well as the lead of this secret kind of agency that's leading the charge against these evil mechs. And that teacher is very well endowed. And yeah, look,
I went to the wrong school, apparently. That's a shame.
It's always a teacher, isn't it? Isn't it always a teacher?
Well, in the games, they're always teenagers, right? So the teacher has to be the adult. So, and they've always got to have the hots for teacher. So, yeah, there you go.
And one of the characters, by the way, is, out of all the teenage girls, there's one character who talks really high, like this.
Okay, don't do that because your audio is cutting out constantly because it thinks you're going too high to be talking.
That's what it's like. So there's always these teenage characters who are infantilized, and unfortunately, there
That's
is
not
one of
good.
those characters, which is a bit annoying. Like Charlotte that we've mentioned in previous games, there's a teenager who talks like an
Is she like
eight-year-old.
3,000 years old by any chance? Or? Oh,
No. Well,
okay.
not that I've revealed as yet. She seems fairly tangential to the whole plot and story, but she is one of the 13. So, anyway.
There is 13 Sentinels. There's not like
There are 13
10.
Sentinels and 13 characters
Okay.
who have a Sentinel.
There's no secret 14th Sentinel.
Oh, I hope not.
Um,
But yeah, anyway.
by the way, during that conversation there, my Alexa decided to present the movie The Sentinel to me for some reason. Very interesting. I must have triggered a keyword. So what have I been playing? I have finished. No, I haven't finished. I've played a couple of games. I've finished a couple of games since the last episode. Probably the biggest of those would be Starfield. Starfield came out eventually, and I was very eager to play it. I really do enjoy some of Bethesda's games, especially like Oblivion, Morrowind, Skyrim. That setting always, I've enjoyed those games. I enjoyed Fallout 3. I did not enjoy Fallout 4 for some reason. Starfield. Yeah, you can see how I get confused. Starfield. It's. I think they were overly ambitious on what their engine could deliver on. There's a lot going on in the game. There's some fantastic things like shipbuilding and whatnot that you could put a lot of time and effort into. I think the combat is quite good. The guns feel good. The thing I don't like is, and I guess this is very difficult, is the feeling of traversing space. Space is big, and I suppose you don't want to be looking at the same thing for 10 hours while you fly to the moon. But every time you want to go somewhere, and while there is some fast travel to help with this, it's like, all right, I want to go from the planet I'm on to another planet. It's the first time I've ever done it, so I've got to have a cutscene go from when I travel from the planet to space, from the space that I'm in to around the other planet, and then again from that to the planet. And that's a lot of loading. It's fast loading, but it's still loading. It's got a cutscene every bit of the way, and it's just like, I just want it to feel seamless. Say what you want about Star Citizen, but I can fly from space to a planet and back and go into a building without loading. If I land on the planet and then I go in the building in this game, half the time I have to load, and it's just load, 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 load. And I get that their engine is very good at keeping track of millions of things that you move around, and if you want to put cheese everywhere, the cheese will remain where it was for all eternity. And that's like some impressive stuff, right? Keeping track of all that cheese. But I just want to fly my ship and land and go in a building without loading, and I know that's a lot to ask, but it just kind of feels like Fallout and the Elder Scrolls games, right? They got the same foundational engine behind them, and they still feel like they're different games. This game felt like it was Fallout to me for some reason. I don't know why, but it didn't scratch the itch that I was hoping it would. It's still a good game. I give it a good 7.5 out of 10. There's my arbitrary rating scheme. But it wasn't what I hoped it would be. And I don't know if that's on me or what they, hyped it up to be.
It's not a very seamless experience, is it? Where if you have to do so much travel, and then all that travel involves is loading at the other end, and it's a real stop-start. It's not very,
yeah.
Yeah.
There are other games out there, like No Man's Sky, that will let you go from space to a planet and back and forth without loading. Star Citizen will let you do it. I don't know why they. I guess the engine just wasn't up to it or something, and you've only got so much time and so much money and whatnot. But I was a little bit disappointed. I've also I played and finished Spider-Man 2 on the PS5. It takes, the first game was good. This one's better. Like, the first one suffered from the side missions being very samey, do the same thing over and over again. This one has a lot more variety. The story is good. The graphics are good. Maybe there's a little bit too much side content to do. They could have, pulled it back a little bit. They've gotten very good. Sony have gotten very good at this cinematic single player game thing. With God of War and Spider-Man. I don't know if it's because, I've played through all the Arkham games. I feel like the combat in Spider-Man still isn't as good as those ones. It's a very good game. I do highly recommend it. But it feels like, when you go and watch a Marvel movie and you come out of it and you go, well, that was fun. But I don't feel like it's had a major impact on my life. Or maybe it seems like it does to a lot of people. But yeah, it's nice fluff, but it's not a hearty meal.
More style than substance. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, there are some really good story beats in there where I was like, oh, I can feel some emotion here. You've done a really good job. But I think, if say I looked at the last God of War game versus this, I enjoyed the last God of War game, even though if mechanically it may not have been a smoother game, it still felt like a product that left me satisfied at the end. Whereas with Spider-Man, I was like, okay, that was a thing. I had fun, but that was a thing. And maybe I'm just jaded. I'm playing Alan Wake 2 right now, which is 13 years I've been waiting for that sequel, and I'm very glad to have gotten it. In that time,
Chinese democracy.
I got married. I had a child. He's 11 years old. I've had a whole career in the time that it took to get a sequel to Alan Wake. But that's interesting. I'm enjoying that. Those games have very good writing. They take, they probably more than... I know it's a game about a writer, but he's a bad writer. So, it probably takes some effort to write badly, successfully. Remedy Games, they're the studio that puts out Alan Wake. They've put out Control, and in the past, the original couple of Max Paynes and stuff like that. And they did Quantum Break. And there's this whole extended universe that they do, before the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Remedy Universe. And so the interplay between the worlds of Control and the worlds of Alan Wake, and one of the lead characters in these games is played by the guy who played Max Payne. He's playing a cop, a noir cop. It's just brings a smile to my face. They're doing some really interesting things with the world. Like, you can sort of reconstruct or deconstruct the world with Alan's writing. So, like you'll flip in, so you'll have a scene, you're in the game, you're playing, but it's a scene in his book. And in the scene, he has ideas, and you can flip them in and out, right? So you could say, what would be like if this scene was about the FBI and blah, 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 or what if it was about this murder cult, or what if it was about this? And the world around you that you're in will manipulate and change based on that kind of stuff, and it happens in real time. It's quite impressive. I'm really enjoying it. It's probably the best looking game I've ever played.
Wow.
And I guess that's because, they went into partnership with Epic/Unreal to make this game. So they probably had people on hand that they could talk to say, hey, let's do some cool technology stuff with this game. But definitely a big fan of the first Alan Wake. Very disappointed there's no physical version. Digital only. The horrible digital future is coming for us all. And I do not like it. Oh. But those are the
Yeah.
games I've been playing. I do look forward to getting into Super Mario Wonder, just like I look forward to one day getting into Tears of the Kingdom when our son
Mm.
gives up. We did buy a new Switch. We have our third Switch now to try and make it so we can all play games. We'll see how that goes. But that's what I've been playing.
Mm. Yeah, he's in there playing Super Mario Wonder as we speak. He's nearly finished it. It's not as meaty as I first thought. I guess they kind of put it out there that there's just so much variety and you can go back and lots of replay value. Go back and play levels with different badges and stuff like that to get more out of the game. But he's smashed it.
I can
So,
finish Mario 3 in an afternoon, you know. It's platformers are short games, so
that's Mario 3. And also, I hate that pirate ship level. It sucks.
they're great.
Um,
The whole game's perfect. It's perfect, baby. It's perfect.
oh, Mario 3. Oh,
For-
it's a formative game for me. Oh my gosh.
Forget
I
about
played,
Tetris. Mario 3 is the perfect game.
oh, Mario 3. I played the shit out of that. Just about 5 years after everyone else. Yeah, yeah. So Mario Wonder is looks like fun. I personally won't play it because platformers are not my jam. But I'm glad our son's getting a bit out of it because we weren't really sure because he much prefers 3D gaming and action adventure and stuff, and platforming is not really necessarily his favourite. He'll give it a go though. But yeah, he's enjoying this. I think he really enjoys what they've done with changing some of the essential elements of the game, like having bendy warp pipes and having badges where you turn into, where you can blow bubbles or turn into elephants. He's enjoying all that. So
It
yeah,
looks good. Looks
yeah,
great.
looks
I
really
enjoyed.
nice.
I played a couple. I played the first 4 levels or something, and I just thought they were brilliant mechanics that they had brought in. So they didn't phone this one in, at least.
No, but they've also removed bop bop.
Oh, thank God! I don't want dancing Coopers. Get the bop bops out of my game.
Oh, but they do have Wowie Zowie.
Yeah, our son does not like Wowie Zowie.
Wowie Zowie. Hey, it's a great pavement album. I'm
What?
all for Wowie Zowie.
Well, they got rid of Charles Martinet, so they needed a new
Oh,
catchphrase. Mamma mia, maybe it's too racially, thing. It's Wowie Zowie
yeah.
now.
Yeah, so now they've got a flower that talks to you and he's got
I
a bit of a
like that. The
voice.
flower's great. The flower's
Uh,
like tripping.
yeah, mate, the whole game's tripping.
Uh,
It's pretty wild. It's good fun. It's good fun.
yes.
Looks like. Yeah, yeah. Oh, anyway, we've been playing a lot, obviously. We had a bit of a extended break between podcasts, but do you want to talk about our favourite segment? What came in the mail, but it didn't come from China this
No.
time. What came
Um,
in the mail? Look, there's an essential part to this process, and
Is
that
there?
is when we say what came in the mail, is the element of surprise. The only way this can be nominated for this, which is basically everything that gets ordered, is that I need to be unaware that it's coming.
Look at this. Look at this. This is what came in the mail. This is a Pentium, maybe a Pentium 2, I think. It's like 500-ish megahertz. And look at this. Is this not the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? This thing here, it has like 3 ISA ports, 3 PCI ports, AGP. Oh, it is the granddaddy of old PC gaming, and it's long been a dream of mine to revisit that period of history in computing that I spent a lot of time playing. And you need very specific configurations of things, very specific sound cards, very specific video cards that apparently nowadays are really expensive on eBay. Don't go looking for them. I look forward to the future parcels in the mail.
I don't.
Anyways, I don't know about you, Angela. Actually, I do know because we've talked about this in the past. But I heavily, when I was growing up, probably the first bit of computing I did outside of like the Atari 2600, gaming, sorry, than the Atari 2600 and whatnot, it was kind of like on a Commodore 64, so that's a personal computer. And then I switched back to consoles for like your NES and your Super NES. But then there was this period in my early teens where I really got into PC gaming. And, it was just... PC gaming was difficult. It was difficult because nothing would ever work. You'd have to have a boot disk, or you'd have to edit config files, or you'd have to sit there and change interrupts and direct memory access channels and stuff like that just to get a game to work. And getting one game to work would break another game. But the kind of games that were coming out were really fun. Like, your first kinds of real-time strategy games were coming out back then. And, you hadn't seen anything like it before. Games like Civilization and Dune 2 and that were coming out. And, you were starting to get finally side-scrolls like Commander Keen. And then you get Wolfenstein and Doom and it was just a really exciting time. So there was a whole point there where up until like the Nintendo 64, I stopped playing console games. You had an Amiga, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had Amiga. Like, to be fair, PC gaming was it was a privilege afforded very few people. And our family were one of those families that were not afforded the privilege of PC gaming, which I think I would have enjoyed a lot more if it wasn't something that was reserved for... I had two friends who had very rudimentary PCs and a couple of bits of shareware. And that's basically as good as it got. I had a friend who had Wolfenstein, and so we did get to play that. And that was completely a pirated copy. So... yeah, we had an Amiga because remember, we're talking about like late 80s, early 90s. PCs were bought into homes for children for educational purposes. They were not supposed to be for gaming. So the kids wanted it for gaming. The adults went, no, we're going to bring this in because they're going to need to do their homework on it at some point. And they can play a game or two, but it's really for educational purposes. And so when shareware kind of started erupting, parents were okay with that because they're just like, oh, this is really cheap. Okay. And, they'll still play a game, even if it's only the first part or, and, people got pretty savvy and started finding ways to be able to access games in ways that they shouldn't. Or, someone sharing a key, I seem to recall being a thing. But... yeah, not everyone had one. And we had an Amiga, and we got an Amiga fairly late in the Amiga process, and the idea was it was for educational purposes only. So we had one game, which was some kind of racing game. I don't know. If we find it, we'll put a still of it here.
What do you remember about? I want to know. What was it?
Oh, it was a Lambo. You drove a Lambo.
Was it Test Drive? Was it...
yeah, I can't remember.
Lotus Esprit Challenge? Was it?
Oh my God, it was. It was Lotus Esprit Challenge. That's what it was. That was the
Accolade.
game.
Yeah, there you go.
That was the game. Very impressive game, but I had zero interest in car games, in racing games. So yeah, that was the game. And yeah, great. And then we went on a trek once to St Kilda to a very dodgy apartment. For those of you familiar with Melbourne, St Kilda has always traditionally been a little bit dodgy. And this guy was punching out, little Amiga floppies, little pirated Amiga floppies from his home that he would get via his modem, which was the old school one with, the telephone handle. And we picked up a few pirated games for $5 each that, we got through the trading post, which was a little...
We do not endorse piracy in this.
No, we don't. But we are talking about something from the, the late 80s, early 90s here. And the Trading Post newspaper was definitely, that was the way to get this stuff back in the day. So as a result, I did get to play Batman the movie and Batman, I think it was called The Dark Knight Detective, which was the more cartoony Batman, and then Batman the movie, which I think was an Ocean game.
Yes.
And Wonder Boy Monsterland that I played the living shit out of.
It's a great game.
I played it again and again and again. And then I started speedrunning it, which I didn't realise at the time, but that's what I used to do. Now we can see how, why speedrunning is so popular. I didn't even realise I was doing it. But yeah, that was the only PC I had access to, and it wasn't really for gaming, and they were the only games I had. So, I'm jealous of that because some of those games I would have played so much. But basically, I'd go to my friend's house and all she'd have would be worms or James Pond, the first two
Oh
levels.
man, Robocod. Yes,
Robocod.
that was
Or
James
maybe
Pod too,
Duke
right?
Nukem. We'd play a little bit of Duke Nukem. And that was basically it because, yeah, it's not something that many people had.
I heard that John Cena is going to play Duke Nukem in the movie. I think that's actually good cast.
That
Good
is,
casting.
that is good casting. I hope it's R-rated.
I hope they realise, that Duke Nukem is not a character of the now. It is a caricature of a caricature, and they play it correctly. But
Yeah,
John
yeah,
Cena,
it's
I
gonna be
I could see that.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess you're recapturing your PC youth with your little computer
Oh,
project
it's
there.
great. I'm having the time of my life, except for when things don't work and I'm having to juggle IRQs and stuff. And then it sucks. We don't realize how good we've got it now. I know people go, oh, PC gaming, that's for big nerds who want to edit ini files and stuff like that. Man, nowadays you just plug a mouse in, or you got a wireless mouse, you plug something into the computer, it just works. Back in the old days, you plug something in and Windows would just yell at you and go, "What the hell is this?" You know.
Yeah. But
So
yeah, anyway,
big mail
enjoy that.
deliveries.
Yeah, I was on a meeting here and the front door opens and a very large box came in and I heard frenzied unwrapping and pulling open of this box. I'm like, what is this? I don't recall ordering anything this big. So the fact that you managed to order that and get it in the house without me having any idea, that's good.
Mission
That's
success.
good, it's good stuff.
So what about
Yeah.
in your side of the world though? Have you got? I know you haven't got anything interesting in the mail lately, but you've got maybe some updates on the soy sauce ordeal or something like that.
Oh, I just mentioned that last time. I just want to let you know that Sushi did a really good job of not giving me soy sauce. They were asking me for a while. And then yesterday we ordered sushi and I opened up the box and there was soy sauce in there.
And she was angry.
I was fucking enraged.
Yeah, it's the
So
little
now
things.
And that sushi sucks though. They don't do the nori right, and it's chewy. I hate that. Yeah.
Sushi sucks anyways. So yeah.
Yeah, they do suck. It's just the convenience of it, and. But I was very annoyed to find that they've resumed putting soy sauce back into the box of sushi. Cut it out, man. I'm over it. It's bad for the environment. I don't need soy sauce that badly. I don't know. Maybe we should get people to vote. Do you put soy sauce on your hand rolls?
Sometimes.
You're more than welcome to hit us up on our email.
Yeah, we'll drop the email address at the end of the podcast and along with our Instagrams and whatnot. But we love to hear from you guys. So if at any point there's feedback you've got for us, or you want to reach out and tell us how wrong we were with something that we said. Maybe you were hugely into Mac gaming because you were one of those weirdos, and you really love Shadowrun. Reach out and tell us. Shadowrun's great, by the way.
Shadowrun's supposed to be really good though.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. But it's a game that came out on the Mac first. Maybe you were really looking forward to Halo coming out on the Mac when you saw it announced at Macworld, and then Microsoft came and bought the company. Tell us how that made you feel. Yeah.
Hey, Carmen Sandiego.
Hey, we saw Carmen Sandiego at PAX.
We see Carmen Sandiego every year, and I'm pretty sure it's the same chick.
It's an easy thing. You get red, trench coat and a fedora, and you're sorted.
Yeah. I'm always a bit disturbed about how many people are perving at her, though. She's walking around.
Well, she never did anything for me.
Well, apparently she does things for other people. But, yep, Carmen Sandiego every year. Should we mention our sound bites before we leave for today?
Yes, of course.
What sound bites we came up with. So, obviously in the intervening time, we always try and think of a few that
resonate.
we've enjoyed.
They resonate with us.
Resonate, that's right. And while we were at PAX, I was reminded of Altered Beast and,
Oh.
of course, the absolutely classic "Wise from your grave." And I've forever wondered why the gods have lisps.
Rise from your grave.
I just forever wondered why anyone would play Altered Beast. I'm sorry,
Oh,
I don't get it. I don't get
no,
it.
it sucks. Nah,
You
I'm
could play
with you on that
Karnov
one.
instead, and that's terrible. But why would you play Altered Beast? I don't get it.
Oh, Altered Beast is terrible.
Hey, Ange. Let's do a hypothetical for a second. Imagine you were going to put out a console, and you were going to pack a game into your console to make a really good impression. Would it be Altered Beast?
Not in any circumstances. Look, give them some credit. They rectified it later. They packed Sonic in. That's fair.
Sonic's a good game.
But Sonic was not out when the Mega Drive launched, and therefore we all got saddled with Altered Beast.
I'd not pack anything in rather than pack Altered Beast in. I'm just saying. But yeah, that
Yeah,
is
Altered
a
Beast.
classic Wise from your grave.
Yeah, what's the other thing? Oh, there's a bit of power up.
Power up.
Yeah, I think yeah. So the voice, I think the voice was supposed to impress people, but maybe next time get if you're going to digitize a voice, maybe get a voice actor that doesn't have a lisp.
Oh, look, no, I think that we might be bordering on the racist there. I'm sure it was a Japanese dude saying it, so you know.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Fair enough if they can't say ah, but
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
I'm gonna go with
it was
that.
good fun. It was
Um,
good fun.
but there are some that you don't think about often, right? Like fighting games have been around for a long time, right? And there's just some classics that have come about in the fighting games, right? So like I think you suggested, flawless victory
Flawless victory.
and perfect from Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. Those are things that will never leave my brain. Your Hadoukens and that are one thing, but just finish him, that kind of thing. You could say that to anyone and they'd know what that was from.
Finish him!
Yeah, and Street Fighter's got loads of them, really. Street Fighter's got endless because, of course, it's the first fighting game, I think, where they had to shout their special move.
Yeah,
Every single character had to shout their special move, and then you spent a lifetime trying to work out what the hell they were saying. Yeah, so, and I don't know, I think it took me a good 5 years before I finally established that, yeah, it's called Hadouken. That is what it is. It's a word, apparently. And yeah, because we had all kinds of bets going about what the hell that was, but as it turns out, it was Hadouken.
well, when you don't speak Japanese, you don't know what they're saying, right? So
Yeah. I just remember being at the arcade and we'd always go, what is that word?
I just remember being at the arcade and people would come up with all kinds of like fake gossip about these games. Because, like with Mortal Kombat, you'd have fatalities, but they wouldn't tell you how to do the fatalities and things like that, right? So there'd be like some kid going, oh, I saw them do this and he ripped the heart out of that guy. And that was kind of
Yeah,
cool.
and you'd be like, oh, can you trigger that? Oh, I don't know, man. It's really secret.
And then other people would just make up nonsense. They'd be like, I saw this guy playing Guile and he pulled out a gun and shot the other guy at the end. And I'm like, what? You're full of crap. No, man, I saw it. And there's a secret character. It's like Crocodile Dundee, You go to it. It goes, Australia. And then you fly to Australia. And there's like, Crocodile Dundee. And I'm like, what the hell are you? You guys are on drugs. But I miss that about, when that's something that's sort of like when Dark Souls came out and people are talking about all the weird esoteric stuff that happens in the game. Like you believe that anything could happen.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I remember when they said that they started talking about things like babalities, and I didn't quite believe that. Got to say though, Mortal Kombat jumped the shark when babalities came in.
Long time ago. Like I've played a lot of Street Fighter in my day, a lot, and I've played a fair bit of Mortal Kombat. Right, as a fighting game, Street Fighter is a much more mechanically complex and exciting and fun game to play. Whereas I understand that Mortal Kombat has much more mainstream appeal because of its visceral, um, you know, fatalities and
Violent.
stuff. Yeah,
It's violent.
but and also they just generally put together a decent, like, fun storyline single player game. Whereas Street Fighter dropped that for a very long time up until the most recent one. But yeah, there's just something about Mortal Kombat after Mortal Kombat 2 that it was never the same. It was just too absurd. It was all over the place. I don't know, babalities, friendships.
Oh,
Oh,
friendships.
I don't want any of that shit in my game.
No, no. By the way, if anyone has played Mortal Kombat 1, which I think is a pretty interesting title, if anyone's played Mortal Kombat 1, as in the game
The
that
new
just got
one, yes.
released, the new one, please let us know, because I don't know if we're planning on playing Mortal Kombat 1. It's been an exceptionally fun little violent bloodfest the last couple of installments, so I'm interested to hear.
I want to say I really appreciated that for whatever that last Mortal Kombat was, that they went out and they did, like, all these packs as DLC where they got the original actors to come back,
Yeah.
like Christopher Lambert and the guy who played Shang Tsung. Sorry, I can't remember his name. Kerry something or other. He's great. He is my Shang Tsung. They got
Forever.
what was the lady who played Sonya Blade?
Oh,
I cannot remember the name, but she did a much better job than Ronda Rousey did voicing that character. I just really appreciated that kind of nostalgia thing. Like, that's DLC done well.
yeah, or have an Arnie,
Yeah,
that type of thing. That's cool.
they
That's a
did good
cool
DLC.
idea.
Yeah, Terminator, RoboCop. You've got Arnold Schwarzenegger. You got Stallone as Rambo. It's
So
kind
cool.
of fun. I like that more than when they did, like, the Alien and the Predator and stuff, because they're not really characters. They don't have,
No.
any charm to them. Yeah, they're monsters. Like, you do Freddy and Jason and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, RoboCop is pretty cool, right? And there's a cool RoboCop game coming out soon that I'm really probably going to buy. Really interested in. While we're talking about voice sound bites, I really like the voice sound bites in Wolfenstein. When you would open a door and you just hear that door clank open, and then you'd hear the guy yell at you in German on the other side, and
Yeah.
the dog barking, and
Yes.
yeah, it's
yes.
just those
The
those.
dog barking. Oh, that was like trauma. You'd hear the dog. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah, those are fantastic sound effects, right? So I think great sound effects, Foley or whatever you want to call it, in a game goes a long way.
Well, we were talking about Alien Trilogy today because I bought a Saturn and that was the game I bought with it for launch. And I'll never forget when you're walking around and all you hear is the dee, 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 just like the movie, right?
Motion
And then you hear
tracker,
that. And I remember playing it at like 3 a.m. and shitting myself.
I'm gonna play that sound effect over the top of what you just did, because again your microphone cut out. So visually all I saw you do is make this weird, like, death rattle face, and I know exactly what you meant. So
Yeah.
I remember. I don't know if you ever played Doom back in the day. People used to do like Aliens mods, what they call them, WAD files for Doom.
Yeah.
And that was so good. They were some of the best. And it's all about those sound effects, right? Like, you can close your eyes and you can hear the sound of the alien hissing, or whatever you want to call it, happening. The sound of the doors opening and closing. It's there's not enough credit given to really good audio in games. And, like, for generations now, we've had, 7.1 surround sound in video games and stuff like that. But there's still something about particular unique audio clips that aren't reused everywhere that just really add something to a game. I'm trying to think if I can think of any off the top of my head, but, like, Alien Isolation did it so well. Like, that whole world, it wasn't just the visuals, but it was the sound. It sounded like what you would expect.
Yeah. Well, I think what do you reckon? I think we've come to a close for this edition.
Now, there's one more thing I got to say. There's a sound effect I don't like. It's not actually a sound effect. It's a thing. It's that thing when Sonic's about to drown underwater.
Oh, trauma.
And it gets faster and faster, and I don't like it. I don't like it. Yes.
And then you hear the sound of Sonic drowning.
And he dies. He drowns on screen. Anyways. I don't want to hear that. But yes, other than that, we've come to the end of the show. So, we should probably...
Yeah, look. Our email address.
Probably give you our email addresses. But first, before we give you the email address, Angela, where can people find you on Instagram or Twitch?
On Instagram and Twitch, I am Pons Institute. One word, Pons Institute.
Mm-hmm. You can find me on Instagram, Matt_Techia, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Lyriel, which is LYRIELL. And if you want to write into us, the email address is theforevergrindpodcast@gmail.com. We'll put a link under there. Write in if you've got anything you would like us to talk about, or you've got some feedback on anything we've said today. We would love to hear it, and we will discuss it in our next episode. Until then, it's probably time to say thanks for watching, and
Bye for now.
you got it. Thank you very much.
Bye.